In our days, consumption by an end user most often means through something like this. So in order to give us some more details into how this can be achieved with SAP technology, we have Johannes Feicht from Passau, from Custom Development. Johannes, you have the word.
Yes, thanks Victor for your nice introduction. Welcome also from my side. Before we started, I wanted to know something because the guys before me did a little bit of competition. What's the coolest programming model? S/4HANA or microservices on Java? Please give me a hand if you have already done mobile development or if you like to do mobile development. I think it's more than 50%, so sorry. Okay, let's start. Developing mobile apps with HANA Cloud Platform mobile services. For the next maybe 60 minutes, we want to look at the mobile strategy from SAP, then zooming a little bit in and look at the architecture behind this, and then I will show you a sample app that we created and enriched with mobile features, and finally closing with best features, roadmap, and so things. Yes, come back to SAP Fiori. When we talk about mobile in the SAP world, the central entry point is SAP Fiori. Fiori are design guidelines to create user interfaces which are responsive, simple, delightful, role-based, and so on. I think you heard about it. And it's recommended by SAP, but not necessary to implement these user interfaces with SAP UI5. And this is also true for the mobile applications. So the next point from the strategy from SAP, developer focus. Maybe you think about it, SAP cares about the developers. At this point, it's true because they wanted to build efficient SAP-centric mobile applications without any SAP-specific knowledges. That means you could use open standard technologies, OData, we heard about at Christian's talk, and they wanted to create any device apps. That means run on iOS, Android, and Windows, and also on different devices. The next key component in the strategy is the SAP mobile platform. It's the on-premise version of the HANA Cloud Platform mobile services. So please forgive me if I sometimes mix these two words, because it's the same code base, only the SAP mobile platform is it called when it's deployed on-premise, and it's called HCPms when it's running in the cloud. So we could say it's nearly the same. And the SAP mobile platform was initially built by Sybase. There it was called Sybase Unwired Platform, and then SAP joined Sybase in 2010, I think, and they adapted this platform with SAP-specific features and called it SMP. Formerly it was called SUP, so nearly the same. Okay, and what does this platform do for us? It delivers us a few services which are needed for enterprise applications. Like offline was already mentioned. Usage analytics, we wanted to know how many users use our apps, what did they do, which operating system, which device types. I wanted to have a lifecycle management for my applications, push notification, logging and tracing for defect analytics, and so on. Okay, What's also important when we talk about enterprise applications is security. Our customers wanted to mobilize their suppliers, employees, and also customers from them. And everybody wants to bring his own device. That means we have to create apps that run everywhere, and they must also be secure. Our customers trust in our apps, and SAP has a few things to help us to secure the apps. So summarizing this a little bit up, the last points, the plan is to build, run, and secure the apps. And here's a little bit life cycle, starting with Web IDE, deploying with Hybrid Application Toolkit, ship them out to SAP Mobile Secure, Mobile Place, and run it on the device. So that was the strategy. Now we are looking at the architecture behind it. As already mentioned, the mobile services is a central component of it. And it's included in the HANA Cloud Platform. We heard about it. It's a service. It's also available in the trial account. You can activate it and test it. And you also need the SAP Web IDE to create these apps. And as we could see here, if we want to develop these apps, we have a part which is running in the cloud. And the guys who take tomorrow's hands-on know especially this part, because the installation from the local types, the Hybrid Application Toolkit, Platform SDK, and the tools, depending on the operating system for which you want to build, have to be installed locally, and there you have a few things to do. So this platform offers us, or the mobile services offers us a few capabilities to build these apps. So especially secure access to on-premise backends is a topic, because we have the HANA Cloud Connector to access this via VPN, and we have this SDK which works in combination with the mobile services. So if you build an app, you always have to use both parts. You have to use this SDK and you have to use the mobile services. If you only use one of these, it makes no sense. You can't run it. And especially the services which run here offers you resource bundle management, application update management, logging and tracing, as I said. The mobile platform SDK is a set of tools and libraries, and it's splitted in different parts. You have the capsule SDK, and you have native SDK parts, and you have also here these services which running the mobile services which you can access. And you have in the SDK the APIs to create offline stores, and the mobile services does some things for you. You could also create push notifications, and you have a login plugin that's already prepared, and you can use this with this SDK. And yes. So we wanted to have a look at the mobile application types which we can build with this SAP mobile stack. In generally, we have the web applications which are built with SAP UI5, as already mentioned by Christian. You use standard web tools like JavaScript, HTML, or CSS. And you could run them in every supported browser, nearly on all devices. But if you wanted to access native capabilities from your devices, maybe calendar access or mail or something else, push notifications, then you need more than web applications. And the counterpart from web applications are native applications. Native mobile applications are typically built in a native programming language from the operating system where you want to build this. This means for Android applications, you build them in the Android Studio with Java, and for iOS applications, you may be using Xcode or Swift. So these are the counterparts. But as you write these native applications in the specific programming language, you have the problem that you write them once, but could not run it everywhere. So there's a little bit a problem. But it's true that this native application offers the best performance and the best user experience, because you could program more operating specific, and you could all these nice features which maybe iOS offers. So what's a solution? One of the solutions maybe are hybrid applications. Hybrid application, as the name already says, mix these two techniques up. That means you are using the web tools, JavaScript, HTML, and so on, to creating the app. And you could also access native features. And this is possible via interfaces. You have JavaScript interfaces for these native mobile features. You have maybe a JavaScript API for accessing the calendar. And if you build this app, you must decide the environment. And then for this environment, the plugin is, the APIs are injected. So if you build for Android, the Java APIs are injected, and it runs on an Android device. And to build these hybrid applications, there exists a few frameworks. The most popular is, I think, Apache Cordova, and SAP decided to build these hybrid applications with Apache Cordova. And this is the architecture from Apache Cordova. As I said, you have a native application, which is already an APK file or an EPA file for iOS, and you install it. And inside this application, there's running a web view. And in this web view, these web sources are interpreted as they run in a normal browser. And this is the access to these native features. You have a JavaScript API, and here are the native APIs which are injected when you build the app. And what SAP does, it built his own plugins, and these are the capsule plugins. That means you have plugins for the topics I mentioned in the SDK, push, log on, offline, OData support, barcode scanner. And the nice thing here is that you, with this architecture for the hybrid applications, you could use these SAP-specific plugins, and you could also make use of all Apache Cordova plugins. And there exists a few hundred. That means you are not advised to only use these capsule plugins, so you can use every Apache Cordova conform plugin. So this is the runtime architecture of the complete picture. That have we seen in the former slide, in a little bit another version. But these app is communicating with the HCPms server. You're registered here, and this HCPms server forwards the authentication to an identity provider. Depends on the authentication mechanism you are configured here. And then you could access via destinations or via destinations, maybe a SAP backend. But it's not necessary to do this. So come back to Fiori. What does this mean for Fiori? We have these web applications, which are built with SAP UI5. And we have these hybrid applications, which are already built with SAP UI5 and capsule plugins and Apache Cordova. Maybe you have already heard from the SAP Fiori client, I think so. The nice thing is that the SAP Fiori client is also a hybrid application. That means you could run these web apps in a Fiori client. And you could also download the source and customize the Fiori client as you like. You could add pictures, customize the URLs, add your custom plugins, or deactivate some plugins if you don't like that your customer use them, and build it and ship it out. This, but in the Fiori client, you can't run a hybrid app. You can do it, but you can't use all SDK features or all capsule features, such as offline is not working in the Fiori client. Also push is not working. So far to the architecture. Now we have a look how to develop these apps. We have already seen Christian's talk, the Web IDE. So I don't want to show the Web IDE again. I only wanted to show you the delta, what is different when developing mobile apps than developing SAP UI5 web apps. So you have also the starting point. You could create an application from a template. There exists several templates for these mobile apps. They are called capsule templates. There is one with offline functionality prepared. You could use them and add your special coding and then preview and then deploy them. So here's one difference. If you develop your mobile apps with the Web IDE, you have to configure your supported platforms. Android, iOS, Windows. Windows is a little bit in brackets because it's not so good supported as iOS and Android. Maybe big brackets. And here you'd say which plugins are used by my app. You see, you can hear a choice of Cordova plugins, you can choose the capsule plugins, and you could also add custom plugins. So the next difference, the mobile services. This is the cockpit from the mobile services. If you create this app, you must also configure it in the mobile services cockpit. You have to say the ID, is it a hybrid app, security stuff, which backend connection. You have here the client policies. There you could say, if you start your app and authenticate it once, you could say if the customers can create a PIN to easy access the app. Then if you have authenticated once, you could start it with a PIN. In the future, I think there is also Touch ID supported. And here you could say, how is the PIN look like, and how long is it valid, and something else. And you could also customize logging activities, which log level do the application have, and you could customize a few things for offline stores, and so on. So come to the deployment. If you deploy these apps from the web IDE, you have different options what you can do. You can deploy it in a ABAP repository, then it's only running as a web app, and you could also deploy it in the HANA Cloud Platform. And you could deploy it to the local hybrid application toolkit. From this, you can build the app. We'll look at the next slide. And you could deploy it to the mobile platform where the configuration is made. The hybrid application toolkit is the local counterpart to the web IDE. And if you want to deploy a mobile application to the local machine and build it with the local machine, you have to start the web IDE with the Chrome. It's important because if you're not using Chrome, the hybrid application toolkit doesn't connect to the web IDE. That's a very well defect, I think, and you have to know about it. So you have the local hybrid application toolkit to build the app. And if you want to deploy it for an Android device, you can do it on a Windows laptop, but if you want to deploy for iOS, you need a Mac. Because, as I said, you need these native features that you have to inject the app. And for iOS, if you have a Mac, you could build iOS and Android, but if you have a Windows, you could only deploy Android. And Windows, you can try. Yes. If I develop such a mobile app, I not wanted to do this build process to the hybrid application toolkit after each change, because this takes about 3-4 minutes with a small app. And faster, you can test your apps. You have the option of the companion app. The companion app is delivered with the hybrid application toolkit. It's here mentioned. And the companion app is a full-blown hybrid app. That means all capsule plugins are already there. And if you say from the web IDE preview on companion app, then it's only injecting the web content. You have another option to scan from the web IDE the QR code. Then the companion app on your smartphone or tablet is downloading or connecting to the web IDE and downloading the sources. This is okay, but it's also not working like the real app, because this companion app doesn't connect to the HCPms. So you could try a few things, but in my opinion, you don't have much advantages than you run it as normal web app, because the real mobile features you can't test. You can't test if the app is registering to the HCPms, you can't test if offline is working, and you can't test if you have all things good configured in your HCPms. The other option is that you run it on an emulator. You could use the Android emulator, and but it's also not so fast as I think it could be. The Android emulator needs also 2-3 minutes to start. I don't know why, because it's only an Android, and if you start your smartphone, it seems to get faster. So why is it so slow starting on a laptop? That's I don't know. Yeah, that's the options. You could test your app. And if you have successfully tested your app, you must bring it to your customers. And this is typically handled via an app store. As we don't want to put all our apps to the Google App Store or to the App Store from Apple, SAP has this sub-mobile place, which handles as an enterprise app store. You could say there which users could be download this app and those things. You could also handle your devices with a mobile secure server. You could say for managed devices which are connecting over VPN, I allow these apps. For unmanaged devices, I allow only these. And that you can also do in the SAP Mobile Secure and SAP Mobile Place. That means you develop on the web IDE, build it, and then upload to the mobile secure server, publish on the App Store, the sub-mobile place. And from then, if you have built a hybrid app, what is also a nice thing, you could inject app updates, because you're only changing web content in your development. And if you don't activate in your change a new plugin, or if you don't need a new plugin, you could send these web files to the HCPms, and from there they are pushed to the devices. And there's no update necessary then for the app, because it's only changing web content. Yes, so much for the theory, and we tried this out and created a hybrid app which is offline supporting, because my MSG colleagues know our timesheet, and we thought about, let's try to do this better with what is not so much challenge. And yes, we used one of these capsule templates, and we used the offline template because we said maybe someone sits is on traveling and he has no internet connection or something else. He could add his time records. And we also tested a few other mobile features, the push notifications. We added speech recognition to say what description the time records have. We do a little smartwatch extension just to playing around, and could say after lunch restart this time record, I'm back, and calendar access and background alarms. So again, this picture, the architecture, because we used exactly this. We created a hybrid app, HCPms, access our backend, our SAP backend, access the OData service, and used the SAP ID service for authentication. So at this time, I have to say sorry, because I wanted to show you this app on my tablet, and I prepared it on Wednesday. And then I bring it home because I'm traveling on Thursday very early, and my daughter thought this tablet could fly. So we only watch videos now. This is my former tablet, and I'd like to show you the login manager. But the problem was, if I recorded this video, it doesn't record this login, because maybe SAP wanted that you could record this password plugin. So if you start this app, you have to type in your password for the first time. For the second time, you could use the short access via pins. So sorry, but you can't see this. Yes, it's a normal master detail layout. I think nearly all have seen this before. Nothing special. Little bit for the functionality we had thought about. We had this with resume and stop, and because it's very often that you have some to-dos, you go to a meeting, you start again later, and for this we thought we have this function would be cool if you could restart such bookings. So this is nothing special more. Now to the features. The first thought was, okay, how we authenticate on this app. Michael already told a little bit about identity and providers and so on. We use the principal propagation that is offered in the HCP and also supported by the HCPms. And that means you could connect to a SAML2 compliant identity provider, or you could configure it in the HCP. And if you, in short forms, if you trust them in your local system, you could make a mapping from your external accounts to your internal accounts. And that's exactly what we do. We log in the app with our SCN user, and then are mapped to our internal accounts, Feichtjobt for me. And this mapping is made in the backend, and if the request gets in, the Cloud Connector host says, identity provider sub ID service, I know him, I trust him, I forward it to the gateway, and the Cloud Connector host and the gateway must also trust. They must have certificates to trust each other, and then that's nearly all to handle this principal propagation. But we take a few days to implement it because it was nothing nowhere really documented, always a few things, and on the last day, as we were ready, we found the document. So, next feature, the offline OData feature. As I said, the offline OData feature works in combination from your local device and from the HCPms server. So that means you have to say which OData entities you wanted to offline, maybe all, don't know, depends on your use case. And if you start once your app, it connects to the HCPms, and the HCPms fetches this data from the backend, and then it's building a SQLite database, or Mobilink. Mobilink is a protocol, and it creates a SQLite database, and this is transferred to your device. So you don't get the pure JSON, you get a compressed format in a database. And if you get Delta updates, if you want to do a new refresh, the HCPms server does the Delta enablement for you, but it's not recommended. Better you do it in the backend and make your OData service Delta enabled, because this is very time consuming. The HCPms also stores this data he sends to the device, and he stores it user specific. And if you get a new request, it fetches the whole data from the backend and compares it, and that's very time consuming. So it's better to do it in the backend. So the next slide is a video to present you these offline functionalities. I'm refreshing now the data in the tablet, that you could be sure that's no fake. And this is the table. You see also 3 records, and they're exactly the same as here. So then, I create a new record, and before creating, switching off the WLAN, and that it has no internet connection. Then I adding one time record, maybe prepared for the traveling to this IT conference. Yeah, do this. And then I must add the description, because some colleagues in my room and I wanted to test the speech recognition. Then I would save it, and it says save successful. I can add anything, but I'm offline. Then I will show you again this backend table where the records are stored. There are still 3, and on the client I have 4, and there is nothing that I can see one of these records are not stored to the backend. Then I switch on the WLAN and do also the refresh, do again the refresh against the backend, and then the new data are sent to the backend. Yeah. Do. Yeah. Yes. Then. Yes. I see. Dataset is. Yes, I see. Here is the dataset. So that's a little presentation for the offline task. So a little bit more details to the offline functionality, how it's working. As I said before, the mobile app requests the HCPms server, say I need this data. The HCPms server accesses the backend and do maybe if they're page handling or something else, or Delta, you see here, Delta enabled, do all requests from the backend that are necessary, then creating the database file, sending the file name to the client, and then send him the small database. And here's like the flush sequence works, was this that we have seen here. If you are offline in the client, you could not see anything, but all actions that you are doing are stored in a queue, and each request. That means if you create a data set, that's what I have done, this is written in the queue. If you change it, it's written in the queue. If you delete it, it's written in the queue. And then, if you're online again, or if you take this flush manually, this queue is sent to the HCPms server, and then the HCPms server accesses the backend for each request. And this is also a good thing, that not the client do this queue. It spends a lot of time, because he sends him only the queue, and then the HCPms server accesses the backend. If you maybe have not good internet connections, this could spend you a little of time. So then comes back the not so good part, because if you're offline and maybe the project office girls were too fast for you and they locked the day you want to book, then you have a problem. Because this is all looking very nice, but the big problems are here. You have so much dependencies to the business. You have parallel access and so on. And you could not react on the client on all these events. So SAP says, look, that you could handle 90% of these errors here. And I think that's not so a bad idea, because we tried this with this app, and we already had a customer project who are full offline, and it's nearly horrible what they must do in the client, because they are in the workforce and they are outside. They started her smartphone in the morning, say what I have to do this day, and then they go. And in the afternoon, when they're at home and have WLAN, they say, yes, send this back to the backend. And they have decided to handle all errors here. They say, okay, here is missing the backend system. They say, handle all errors in the backend. They stop here. When the client flushes, say, everything okay, client, you are done, and then start asynchronously the functions in the backend, and the back office must care about the errors. Yes. So, pretty a nice topic. And but what makes it a little bit easier for implementation is that they provide one API. So in the code you have not so much dependencies or different paths if you're developing online or offline. You say, these are my defining requests, and this is my offline store, and that's nearly all. You have to flush and to refresh on the right parts, and you have to take care maybe about errors. But from the API, you have the same if you are developing online or offline. You have the same operations on the OData entities. So, short outlook to our smartwatch extension. That was only a little bit for playing, to see that this concept or this architecture with the Cordova plugins is really true. We adapted and added in plugins for the smartwatch, and we created a small smartwatch extension. A little bit tricky was to build this app, because you have to build it together, the Android Wear APK and the Android APK. That was a little bit tricky, because we have to take our fingers in this hard build process, but then it works. And if someone is in Germany, Stefan Kurz owned the smartwatch, and if you like, he could present it to you. So coming to push, we thought, yes, we also wanted to test push notifications. We did this all for Android. You have to configure a few things. You have to register at the Google Cloud Messaging, because as we could see here, it's also depending on your operating system. You have the Apple notification service or the Google Cloud Messaging. You must register here for the Google Cloud Messaging. There you get an API key and a project number. And then HCPms offers an API, and you have to send a post with a message, and then it's received on the device. And for this, I have also prepared a small video. Here again, the mobile services cockpit. And I've configured our MyTime app. And here is the push tab. And we added, don't use this send ID, because it's ours. And you have to configure here this API key and the send ID. And here's the tablet again. And I used Postman to send these REST requests. You could use whatever you like. And here I prepared it. I say, hey, Joe, you have new PSP elements available. Please contact the project office. And this I would send to my tablet. There are nothing much to configure in the request, only these few things. And now I'm switching off that you can see. The nice thing with this push notification is that they came in as system notification. That means if you have closed the app, Here I have opened the app, and it's also shown as pop-up maybe. But if you have closed the app, as on the former slide, here you could see it, it's shown as system notification. Maybe open your app, refresh your orders, and so on. And it's truly easily working. So speech recognition, yes, I also couldn't present you because it makes no much. I haven't a video for this, but it was also not a big challenge. Then finished for this demo, and this app is also running in a browser, but then you could not use the offline functionality. As I already said, you could deploy it to the Fiori client, or you could run it in a browser, and but you can't use the offline and the other stuff we tested. And to show you a little bit what we else tried, we have already done a little bit with augmented reality, and we had got a smart glass, and our consulting guys had the idea to do a little bit of augmented reality with the energy producing company. And the idea was, you have the smart glass, had a worker, you go outside to a wind wheel, and the smart glass automatically recognize these wind wheels, show you some additional informations for this, and you can create maybe notifications if there's something is wrong. You could take a photo from this and say what's wrong. And you could also do a video call to your back office. This we only implemented with Skype. And this case implemented on the glass with poor Android. It's an Epson glass, but it's a little bit, yes, it's a little bit big, and it has a strong touchpad to handle it. It's truly a little bit more show than case, but the energy guys were really impressed. So, yes, and to bring our HCPms into this case, we said, okay, if we create these notifications on the smart glass, then let's try to handle it over to a hybrid application. And this we built already the same architecture as our MyTime. It is offline functional, and the tablet creates a WLAN hotspot. And if you watch your glass, you authenticate against this app, the app showing a QR code, and the glass scans it, and then you authenticate it, and you could get in these notifications you created on the smart glass on the app, and then you have the normal process, write it to the backend. Yeah, and maybe next year we can present you this, because I think our guys in the office would go more in this direction. But we planned it for this year, but the problem is on Monday is also another presentation, and so it was not possible. Yes, summarizing up, best features. Best features from my point of view are native, and that there is also native and hybrid application development possible. And especially for hybrid application development, I think it's good that it's based on open standards, that we have seen because we could easily extend this with the plugins. And the capsule plugins are also good ones and bring you some things for enterprise applications. And also a nice feature that it's integrated in the web IDE. The HUD is a little bit a pain, but there's also a solution plan for it. And what also is good, various deployment options. Limitations. Yes, as I already said, the local environment to build the apps could be run better, but they plan a cloud build service, and they released last week a first version. I already tried it, but it's not the full functionality there now. And also limitation is the offline plugin, because it's a little bit intransparent. You have no option to see in the HCPms which data files are stored when it is refreshed. It's very hard to follow this. I think you have to do a good logging if you use this. And yes, it's a black box, and you think it works, but you don't know it really. What's also a limitation is the destinations. It was on a slide, but it was not 100% correct, because you have to configure the backend destinations in the mobile services cockpit twice, and you can't use the destinations from the HCP. That's a little bit not so good. Okay, what's the recommended use? From my point of view, is to add mobile features in the SAP UI5 web applications and build native or hybrid apps or enrich native apps with mobile features. Yeah, and roadmap and strategy. As Michael already said, cloud first, mobile first, sorry. It's true, that's a hot topic in the SAP world, and they are investing much things to make the stack better. They released every 2 weeks the hybrid application toolkit, and we are looking for the cloud build service. As I said, it's in a small version there. Hopefully it's been shipped out full in the next weeks. And another thing that don't matches so much with the first slide, Fiori and SAP UI5, SAP did a partnership with Apple. I think it was in May, and they said they want to create iOS-specific apps, and they are implementing. I think it's already done, don't know. Maybe the TechEd we get more infos about. They wanted to ship HCP SDK for iOS to support iOS apps, and it's not clear what this direction means. Going back from the hybrid path to native iOS, that's what we have to see. Yes, that's all from my side. Time for questions for Victor and Sherwan.
Sherwan doesn't get the microphone. Question over there, yes.
My first question would be regarding the offline mode. Did you implement it, or it's shipped with?
In this MyTime sample app, we only generated it from an offline capsule template, and that was all.
because you said that there is a queue is created in the background. Can you somehow aggregate the queue, or that's not possible?
You can try it, but you must know what you do, because this offline plugin puts every request into this queue. So if you create an entry, as I did, it creates this entry as new. Then if you came back, changes, it puts a change from this entry in the queue. If you delete it, it puts a delete. And if you flush, it sends to the backend, create, change, delete. So it depends on your business case, I think. If the backend must to know what the front end do, then this is the right way. If the backend don't want it to know that the user plays around and creates 100 entries and deleted them, then it's better to change this queue. And I think in the next SDK versions, they wanted to aggregate this, because it could, yes, it could be difficult, but for these easy tasks like create and delete, maybe they could pull it off from the queue. But if the backend wanted to know, then it gets the informations. And from the standard, it gets the informations.
Thanks. I had one more question, but yes, I forgot it.
No problem.
Other questions, please.
So I'm still asking about this offline OData plugin. Is this a standard plugin, or is it a third-party plugin that you imported?
It's a capsule plugin that was written by MSG. Maybe it's adapted from Sybase. I think so, because the Sybase Unwire platform already supported offline, and maybe they had some code base to do this. But it's a capsule plugin and included in the SDK, so you can't get it for free.
And have you tried adding Cordova third-party plugins?
Yes, we tried it. We tried it for the speech recognition and also for the smartwatch, and it's working fine. Only the smartwatch was a bit problem, because you have to build the app to push in the Android Wear app. That was a little bit tricky. We had to adapt it, this build process from the HUD, but it's working. You add these custom plugins in the web IDE, say here's the local path we're lying, and then when the HUD tool builds the app, then it's pushing in these plugins.
I tried it once, and it was very hard to get to the libraries via code, but I think I will come back later and ask you some more technical details.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? So I'm also curious. No, I'm curious, is it hard to publish an app in this SAP store? Do you have to go like with Apple through this whole review process, or do you just...
No, and I think it's better because it's not so complicated to publish it in this submobile place. There is a little integration started with this cloud build service I said, then it's automatically pushed there. And in the Apple store, I know it from this customer project, they're building an app with a native SDK for iOS, and they tried to upload it to the Apple App Store, and Apple said, no, that's not compliant. And SAP said, sure, it's compliant. So, could be difficult.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there are no further questions, thank you, Johannes.